Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I didn't know kindness could sound like a knock at 3 a.m. I had been in America for exactly 11 months when the fire alarm went off. Not a drill. Not one of those fake alerts they warned us about during orientation. This one screamed straight through my bones, a high metallic wail that yanked me out of sleep and dropped my heart into my stomach. I remember thinking, great. Of course this would happen to me. Snow pressed against the window like a dirty white wall. Northern New England winters don't ease you in. They grab you by the throat and remind you that you're not home. I pulled on a hoodie, shoved my feet into flip-flops, and followed the crowd out into the freezing night. Red lights, blue lights, fire trucks parked crooked on the street. Someone had burned popcorn. That's what everyone kept saying, half laughing, half annoyed. Who the hell nukes popcorn at 3 in the morning? Freshman move. Bro, they should ban microwaves. People joked because joking is easier than feeling exposed in the cold, standing half-dressed with strangers, wondering if your dorm is about to go up in flames. That's when I saw her. She wasn't laughing. She stood a few feet away from the rest of us, arms wrapped tight around herself like she was trying to fold inward. Her sweatshirt hung too loose, like it belonged to someone else. Her hair was tied up badly, strands stuck to her face from tears she didn't bother wiping away. No phone in her hand, no friends around her, just her and the ground. I didn't know her name then. Nobody did. Not really. But people were already whispering. That's the girl. Popcorn girl. Dumb as hell. I hated how easily it came to them. I hated it because I recognized it. I'd been that person once. The one people stared at. The one who didn't quite belong. When you grow up undocumented, you learn early that existing quietly is safer than existing confidently. You learn to keep your head down, not draw attention, not make mistakes. Mistakes cost more when you're already invisible. The RA finally waved us back inside. Everyone scattered, still laughing, still joking. She stayed behind. I hesitated, then walked past her. I didn't say anything. I told myself it wasn't my problem. That was lie number one. A couple of days later, I saw her sitting on the hallway floor outside the laundry room. The machines thumped loudly behind her. She wasn't using them, just sitting there, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve like it was the most important thing in the world. I almost walked past. Almost. Hey, I said instead. You okay? She looked up like she hadn't expected anyone to notice her at all. Oh, yeah, she laughed awkwardly. I guess. I didn't know what else to say, so I made a dumb joke. At least you didn't burn the building down, could have been worse. Her eyes widened, then she laughed. A real laugh this time. God, I know. I'll never live that down. We talked for maybe 2 minutes. Nothing deep, nothing personal. Just surface level. Polite, meaningless. Her name was Rowena Hale. She thanked me for asking. I walked away feeling like I'd done something decent. I had no idea she'd memorized my face. The knock came exactly 7 days later. It wasn't a soft knock. It wasn't cautious. It was urgent. Desperate. I was halfway across the room when the door opened. She rushed in like she belonged there. Sorry, I just... Her voice cracked and then she collapsed onto my bed and started crying so hard she couldn't breathe. I froze. She hadn't asked permission. She hadn't waited. I hadn't told her my room number. For a few seconds I just stood there, staring at a stranger sobbing into my pillow, my brain scrambling to catch up. I didn't know where else to go, she said between gasps. That sentence is dangerous because it turns you into an anchor whether you want to be or not. I sat down slowly, asked what was wrong. She told me the dining hall cook had assaulted her, that she reported it, that nothing happened. that she was terrified to even walk to get food. Her hands shook convincingly. Her voice wavered at just the right moments. I believed her, because I had to, because I knew what it felt like to not be believed. I gave her my number. I told her I could walk with her if she needed. That was the moment I stopped being a stranger and became something else entirely. The first walk was quiet. The second, she talked non-stop. By the fourth, she was practically bouncing. She smiled. She joked. She told me everything. Shows she loved, celebrities she hated, random internet drama I didn't care about. She narrated her own thoughts out loud like she was afraid of silence. "You know how Rowena gets," she said once, laughing at herself. "I just ramble when I'm nervous." She referred to herself in third person. I told myself it was just nerves. I told myself she was lonely. I told myself a lot of things. And slowly, without realizing it, I stopped choosing when we talked. She decided. I didn't notice the change right away. That's the scariest part. It didn't feel like danger at first. It felt like responsibility. Rowena started calling more often. At first it was small things. "Can you walk with me?" Or, "Are you busy right now?" I answered when I could. When I didn't, she called again and again. Sometimes she wouldn't say anything important at all. She'd just talk. About nothing. About everything. She talked like silence was something that could kill her. "Sorry," she'd say suddenly. "I know I'm annoying." I always answered the same way. "No, it's fine." Lie number 2. The story started changing around the second week. At first, the dining hall cook was the only one. Then suddenly there were meetings, appeals, secret recordings, threats from the administration. Then, one night while we were walking, she said something that made my stomach twist. "He followed me today," she whispered. "Who?" I asked. "The cook. He stood too close. I could smell his breath." The problem was, I'd been there the entire time. He hadn't even looked at her. I told myself trauma messes with memory. I told myself not to question victims. But then the stories didn't just shift, they multiplied. One night she showed up at my door unannounced again, face blotchy, eyes wild. "I was attacked," she said. My chest tightened. "What?" "On the way to Panera," she continued. "Some guy, Muslim, he grabbed me." The way she said Muslim felt wrong, like it mattered more than the assault itself. Before I could respond, she added, "And my RA touched me too," slapped my chest, said I deserved it. I stared at her. That made 3 assaults. In less than a month, all different people, all conveniently impossible to verify. Something cold settled in my gut. I didn't argue, I didn't accuse, I just said I'm late for class and I left. During class, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. 10 missed calls, 20. By the time lecture ended, there were over 100. Voicemails, messages, all saying the same thing. Hi, no punctuation, no context, just proof she was watching the clock. I went straight to the RAs. They listened politely, nodded, wrote things down. "She's just struggling," one of them said. "Try setting boundaries." Boundaries. Like I hadn't tried. That night I blocked her number. I thought that would be the end. I was wrong again. I was in the bathroom when she found me. I just sat down when I saw movement near the floor. Her face slid into view beneath the stall door. She smiled. "I knew you'd come out eventually." My body went numb. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I told her I was busy, that she'd crossed a line. She didn't apologize. She cried. "My mom died when I was little," she said softly. "I get depressed. You're the only one who understands me." Manipulation doesn't always sound cruel. Sometimes it sounds like a confession. I left her there and locked myself in my room. I shook for hours. That night the pounding started. Not knocking. Pounding. "Open the door," she yelled. "Open it." I stayed silent. "If you don't open this door," she screamed, "I'll kill you." My breath came in shallow bursts. I slid down against the door, hands over my mouth. She didn't stop. She sang through the crack at the bottom of the door. Nursery rhymes, pop songs, soft, distorted humming. For an hour. I called my father, whispering, crying in the language I grew up with, the one I only used when I was terrified. "I want to come home," I begged. The RAs were informed again. Rowena received a warning. That was it. Weeks later, she walked into my room again. I'd forgotten to lock the door. She ran toward the bed, jumped on top of me and my boyfriend, and giggled in a baby voice. "Rowena wants cuddles." My boyfriend didn't hesitate. He grabbed her arm and shoved her out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Campus police took a report. Nothing happened, not until another fire broke out. Another microwave, another evacuation. This time, she was expelled. I thought I could breathe again. Months passed. I made friends, real ones. I started sleeping through the night. Then I saw her face pressed against the glass of a nail salon miles from campus. She stared at me for 10 minutes without blinking. That night, fake accounts messaged me. Invitations, threats disguised as jokes. Years went by. I moved states, started over. Then one night my phone rang. A New Hampshire number. Heavy breathing. "You're still invited," she whispered. "Don't forget." I called the police. I haven't heard from her since. I used to think kindness was always the right choice. Now I know better. Some people don't want help. They want control. And sometimes survival means learning when to walk away, even if someone is crying, even if they swear you're all they have. Because being kind should never cost you your safety. I learned very early that in this country, silence is a kind of survival. I don't mean the quiet of empty rooms or late nights. I mean the silence of not asking questions, not correcting names, not drawing attention. The silence of nodding, even when you don't fully understand. The silence of keeping your head down on job sites, of laughing when others laugh, even if you didn't catch the joke. That silence keeps food on the table. That silence keeps you invisible. And being invisible is safer than being seen. My name is Rafael Quinones, though most people here just call me Ray. It's easier for them. It's easier for me too. I'm 33 years old, undocumented, and I work construction in a city that never really sleeps but somehow always feels tired. The kind of city where the highways are always under repair, where the air smells like oil and hot concrete, and where summer doesn't knock before entering. It kicks the door in. I rent a small room in a tired house on the edge of the city, the kind of place split into too many rooms with thin walls and locks that don't inspire confidence. Cash every Friday. No questions, no paperwork. That's how places like this work. My room has a bed, a dresser missing one handle, a fan that clicks when it oscillates, and a single window that looks out onto an alley full of weeds and broken glass. When I first moved in, I thought the heat would be the worst part. I was wrong. The thirst came first. Not the normal kind. Not the kind you solve with a cold bottle of water after work. This was different. It lived deeper. I could drink until my stomach sloshed, until I felt sick, and still my mouth felt like chalk, like I'd been chewing on old paper. My lips cracked constantly. No amount of lip balm helped. "Welcome to summer, bro," one of the guys at work said when he saw me licking my lips again. "You ain't hydrated, you ain't alive." I laughed with him. You always laugh. The job site sat just outside downtown, a concrete skeleton rising slowly under the sun. We started early, before the heat turned aggressive. By 10 in the morning, the air felt thick enough to grab. Sweat soaked through my shirt and dried again, leaving salt on my skin. My boots were always heavy with mud by the end of the day. That's why I noticed it immediately the first time. I kicked my boots off by the door like always. The room smelled faintly of damp clothes and old wood. I went to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, and when I came back, I saw it. Sand. Fine, pale sand inside my left boot. I picked it up between my fingers, confused. It didn't feel like dirt from the sight. Dirt is dark, damp, gritty. This was dry, soft, almost powdery. Must have tracked it in, I muttered to myself. But from where? The construction site was mud and gravel, not sand like this. I shook the boot upside down. More fell out, enough to make a small pile on the floor. I swept it into the trash and forgot about it, or tried to. The nights were worse. I'd lie on my bed with the fan pushing warm air around the room, listening to distant sirens and barking dogs, and I'd feel like I couldn't get enough water into my body. I kept a jug next to the bed and drank from it until I had to get up and pee twice a night. And when I closed my eyes, I wasn't there anymore. I was back under a white sky that didn't care if you lived or died. The desert doesn't announce itself as an enemy. It pretends to be neutral, endless, quiet, honest. That's the lie. I crossed with 6 others, people I didn't know whose names blurred together after the second day. Hunger and thirst flatten individuality. Everyone becomes the same animal, walking, breathing, enduring. There was one man I remember clearly, Tomas. He was older than me, maybe late 40s. His voice was calm, almost gentle, even when things got bad. He talked about his daughters constantly, said he was going north so they wouldn't have to clean houses like his wife did. Just a few years, he told me, smiling through cracked lips. Then I come back, build something. On the 3rd day, his steps slowed. On the 4th, he stopped. I didn't want to leave him. God knows I didn't. But the guide kept shaking his head, whispering urgently, eyes scanning the horizon. "You stay, you die," he said in Spanish, sharp and final. "You walk, maybe you live." Tomas looked at me when we moved on. Didn't curse me, didn't beg. He just nodded. That nod followed me for years. I woke up gasping, my throat burning, my tongue thick in my mouth. I reached for the water jug and drank until it hurt. That morning I found sand on my pillow. Just a dusting, like someone had shaken it gently while I slept. My heart pounded as I stared at it. I ran my fingers through my hair, expecting grit. Nothing. I checked the window. Closed. Locked. Get a grip, I told myself out loud. At work, I tried to bring it up casually with Javier, a guy from Oaxaca who worked steel with me. "You ever feel like this heat follows you home?" I asked, wiping sweat from my face. He snorted. "Man, this heat follows you to hell and back. You knew or what?" I laughed again. Always laugh. But things kept happening. The whistling started a week later. Late at night when the house was quiet, I'd hear it. A dry, hollow sound, like wind moving across empty land. It didn't match the rhythm of the fan. It didn't match traffic or pipes. I pressed my ear to the wall once, heart racing. Nothing. Another night, I woke up with my chest tight, like something heavy was sitting on me. My mouth was open, my breath shallow. The air felt hot, wrongly hot, like opening an oven door. In the corner of the room, I felt it before I saw it. A pocket of heat so intense it made my eyes water. "Hello," I whispered. The word felt stupid the moment it left my mouth. There was no answer, just that dry presence, watching, waiting. The next afternoon, I came home early. My shift got cut short when a delivery didn't arrive. I unlocked my door, stepped inside, and froze. There, in the center of my room, was a footprint. Bare, long toes. The heel cracked like dried earth. It was pressed perfectly into a thin layer of pale sand that covered my floor. I stood there for a long time, my breath loud in my ears. I lived alone. The door was locked, and I already knew deep down that this was only the beginning. I didn't clean the footprint right away. That sounds stupid when I say it out loud, but fear does strange things to logic. A part of me believed that if I erased it, I'd be lying to myself. Another part was afraid that touching it would make it real in a way I wasn't ready for. So I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at it until my legs went numb. The sand looked wrong, too pale, too uniform. Like it didn't belong to this city, this house, this life. It belonged somewhere endless and empty. I finally swept it up just before sunset, my hands shaking the entire time. When the dustpan scraped against the floor, I flinched, half expecting the sound to echo like it does in open land. Nothing happened. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there listening to the house breathe, pipes knocking, someone coughing in another room, a car passing outside, and underneath it all, faint but unmistakable, that dry whistling sound. It felt closer now, not around me, inside. At work the next day, my hands slipped twice while tying rebar. Javier noticed. "You good, Ray?" he asked. "You look like you ain't slept in a week." "I'm fine," I said automatically. He gave me a look. "You sure? 'Cause you drop that again, Foreman's gonna lose his shit." I nodded and focused. Focus is another kind of survival. During lunch, I sat in the shade with a bottle of water, drinking slowly, deliberately. It didn't help. My mouth still felt wrong, like moisture avoided it on purpose. A woman named Selena, who worked cleanup, sat beside me. She was from El Salvador, sharp-eyed, older than most of us. "You been dreaming?" she asked suddenly. I looked at her. "What?" She shrugged. "You got that look. Like your body's here but your head's somewhere else." I hesitated. Then, quietly, "I keep smelling sand." Her jaw tightened just a little. "That kind of crossing leaves marks," she said. "Some you see, some you don't." Before I could ask what she meant, the lunch whistle blew. That evening, the heat in my room was unbearable. Not humid like usual, dry, aggressive. The fan pushed it around uselessly. I drank water until my stomach cramped. Then I felt it. Pressure, like the air itself was heavier. I sat up slowly, heart hammering. The corner of the room shimmered like heat rising off asphalt. The walls looked farther away, like the room was stretching. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." A shape began to form, not solid, not fully there. A suggestion of a man made of heat and dust. Its edges wavered, refusing to settle. I smelled the desert before I saw it clearly. Old sand, sun-baked stone, death. My throat closed. The shape leaned forward, and for a split second the heat twisted into a face. Tomas. His lips were split open, eyes sunken deep, his mouth moving silently. Agua. I scrambled off the bed, my back hitting the wall. "I didn't mean to," I said, tears streaming down my face. "I didn't mean to leave you." The thing stepped closer. The floor beneath it turned pale, sand spreading outward like a stain. That's when I understood something that made my blood run cold. It wasn't chasing me. It was drinking. I was the only thing here with water left in it. I ran. I don't remember grabbing my keys. I don't remember locking the door. I remember bursting into the street, gulping down thick night air, my chest burning. I walked for hours, past closed taquerias, past liquor stores with flickering signs, past people who didn't look at me twice. By dawn, I was at the bus station. The clerk didn't ask for ID, cash ticket, one-way north. I didn't care where it went as long as it was cold. The ride blurred together, rest stops, cheap coffee, cracked vinyl seats. Every mile north felt like relief. The air changed. My skin stopped itching. The thirst eased, slowly, painfully. I ended up in a mountain town where the mornings hurt your lungs, and the nights were silent in a clean way. I found work at a warehouse. Honest work. Cold floors. Cold air. For weeks I slept. No sand, no whistling, no heat. I thought I'd escaped. This morning, I stood at the sink washing my face, enjoying the shock of cold water. I cupped my hands and drank deeply. Relief flooded me. I looked up, and Tomas was staring back, not behind me, in me. His face flickered, dissolving into swirling dust. I gagged and spit into the sink. Sand hit porcelain, fine, pale, endless. I sank to the floor, shaking, finally understanding. The desert didn't follow me, I carried it. I am not haunted. I am the container. And no matter where I go, the thirst will always know where to find me. I learned early that fear has a sound. It isn't screaming. It isn't crying. Fear sounds like a car slowing down too much on a dirt road. That was the sound that woke me up that morning. Not the alarm on my phone. Not my daughter coughing in her sleep. It was the crunch of tires outside the trailer. Slow and deliberate, like whoever was driving wanted to be heard. I held my breath. For 3 seconds, I didn't move. For 5, I didn't blink. Then the engine kept going. Only then did my chest loosen enough for air to come back in. I lay there staring at the rusted ceiling of our trailer, the metal stained yellow from years of heat and smoke, listening to my daughter breathe beside me. Her breaths were soft, uneven, a little whistle at the end because she always slept with her mouth open. My name is Maribel Cruz. I don't exist on paper. To California, I'm just another pair of hands bent over lettuce, another shadow that disappears when the sun goes down. But to my daughter Sophia, I am her entire world. And to me, she is the only reason I keep standing when my knees beg me to fold. The trailer smelled like damp dirt and instant coffee. That smell never left. It clung to the walls, to our clothes, to my skin. Even after showers, even after scrubbing my hands raw. Outside, Coyote Bend Camp was waking up. Metal doors slammed. A man coughed hard, like his lungs were filled with gravel. Somewhere, a woman cursed softly in Spanish because her stove wouldn't light. A radio crackled to life, norteño music playing low, like someone was afraid it might travel too far. I sat up carefully so I wouldn't wake Sophia. My back screamed the moment I moved. A sharp pain shot from my spine down into my hips. I closed my eyes and waited for it to pass. Pain was an old friend. I didn't argue with it anymore. I swung my legs over the bed and stood. The floor was cold. I pulled on my jeans, still stiff with dried mud from yesterday, and a hoodie even though the forecast said it would hit 90. Long sleeves meant fewer questions, fewer looks. I moved to the tiny stove and lit the burner. The flame jumped too high, then settled. I warmed tortillas directly on the metal because we didn't have a pan that wasn't warped. As the smell of corn filled the trailer, Sophia stirred. "Mama," she mumbled. "I'm here, Corazon," I whispered. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes with fists too small for the work they would one day do if I failed her. Her hair stuck out in every direction, thick and dark, smelling faintly of the strawberry shampoo I bought from a lady who sold things out of her trunk. That smell, sweet, clean, that was the other thing that defined my life. Earth and my child. Everything else was survival. "You working early?" Sophia asked. "Same as always." She nodded like she understood more than a 5-year-old should. I handed her a tortilla with eggs folded inside. She ate quietly, legs swinging off the chair, humming something under her breath, a tune I didn't recognize. "Where'd you hear that song?" I asked casually. She shrugged. "I don't know. It just comes." I didn't think much of it then. After breakfast, I walked her to Doña Reina's trailer at the edge of the camp. Reina watched kids for cash and favors. She smelled like menthol and strong coffee and never asked questions. "I'll be back before dark," I told Sophia, crouching to zip her jacket. She grabbed my sleeve. "You promise?" "I promise." I kissed her forehead. Strawberry shampoo again. I breathed it in deep, like I could store it somewhere inside me for later. The fields were already alive when we arrived. Rows and rows of green stretched under the pale morning sun, so perfect it almost looked fake. Sprinklers hissed in the distance. Supervisors drove by in white trucks with tinted windows, radios crackling. I bent down and started cutting lettuce. Hours passed, measured only by pain. By noon, My hands burned. Dirt worked into the cracks of my skin, turning my palms dark, no matter how much I washed. Sweat soaked my shirt. The sun pressed down like it wanted to flatten us into the soil. Every time a vehicle passed on the road nearby, my heart jumped. A white van rolled by around 2. No logo, no markings. Everyone saw it. No one spoke. We just worked faster. That fear, the sound of tires slowing, the sudden stop, the door slam. That fear was worse than hunger, worse than heat, worse than pain, because pain stayed with you. Fear took everything at once. When the sun finally dipped low enough to give us shadows again, my body felt hollow, like someone had scooped me out and left just enough to keep me upright. I picked up Sophia and walked back to the camp. Women gathered outside their trailers like always, sitting on overturned buckets, folding laundry, watching kids chase dust. This was when stories came out. This was when warnings were shared. "They're around," someone whispered. ICE, maybe county, same thing. My stomach twisted. An old woman named Catalina leaned forward. Her face was lined so deeply it looked like the land itself had carved her. "There are ways," she said quietly. "Ways to run?" Another woman scoffed. Catalina shook her head. "Ways to stay." I didn't ask what she meant. That night, after Sophia fell asleep, I remembered the object. When we moved into the trailer months ago, I had found it buried behind the steps. A small wooden figure, darkened by age. A woman carved thin, arms folded tight against her body. The face worn smooth, no eyes, no mouth. I had shoved it into a drawer and forgotten it. Now, with fear sitting heavy in my chest, I pulled it out. It felt cold. Too cold. I set it on an upside-down crate and lit the only candle we had. "I don't know you," I whispered. "But please, just this once." The flame flickered hard, bending sideways like something had breathed on it. I swallowed. "Protect my daughter," I said. "I'll do whatever you want." Outside, the wind picked up, and somewhere, far down the road, tires slowed. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt watched. Not in a dramatic way, not like something was standing over me, but like the air itself had learned my name and was quietly repeating it. The candle burned all the way down to nothing. When morning came, it came wrong. Too quiet. No radios, no engines, no shouting. The camp felt like it was holding its breath. I stepped outside and saw people standing in small groups, whispering. "The road," someone said. "It's blocked." "What do you mean blocked?" There was a crash. Bad one. By noon, the details spread. A pileup on the only paved road that connected Coyote Bend to the highway. Trucks, a patrol car, twisted metal everywhere. The road shut down indefinitely. No raid, no agents, no white vans. People cried. Some prayed out loud. Others laughed like they were drunk. Catalina found me near the water spigot. "You asked," she said softly. I didn't answer. That night, something changed. The air inside the trailer felt thicker, heavier, like before a storm. Sophia slept restlessly, tossing and turning. At one point, she sat straight up in bed, eyes open. "Sophie?" I whispered. She didn't answer. She just stared at the dark corner where the wooden figure sat. I touched her shoulder. She lay back down like nothing had happened. The next day, Warren, one of the field supervisors, didn't show up. Warren liked to touch women by accident. He liked to lean too close and smile without warmth. By evening, the story was clear. He had fallen off a ladder at home, shattered both legs. Doctors said he might never walk right again. No one celebrated. No one mourned. That night, I noticed the statue had turned. I was sure I'd left it facing the wall. Now it faced the door, watching. Flowers I'd picked days earlier, wild yellow things from the edge of the field, were still fresh, bright, alive. They shouldn't have been. I went to Catalina's trailer. She listens, Catalina said when I told her, but she is jealous. What does she want? I asked. Catalina shrugged. To keep what is hers. The smell came next. Not dirt, not flowers. Ozone, like the air after lightning. Sophia started humming again, always at night. A thin, uneven melody that made my skin prickle. It's her song, Sophia said once when I asked. Who? The thin lady. My throat closed. I began hearing whispers behind Sophia's bed. Not words I could understand. Soft, constant, like leaves scraping concrete. They calmed Sophia. They terrified me. Gifts appeared at the door. A bird, no blood, a snake, coiled perfectly. I stopped sleeping entirely. Weeks later, my cousin called from Oregon. We got a place, she said. Greenhouse work, quiet. You and the kid can stay. Hope punched through me so hard I almost cried. That night I packed, and the door locked itself. The voice filled my head, calm and ancient. Don't go. Sophia hummed in her sleep and pressed her hand to the door. I stayed. Now, months later, Catalina came again. There is a child, she said, sick. The lady listens to you now. I looked at Sophia sleeping, peaceful beneath the heavy air, and I understood. I wasn't protected, I was claimed. I stopped counting days after that. Time in Coyote Bend didn't move forward anymore. It just circled like buzzards above a field after harvest. Morning, work, fear. Night, candle, silence. Again. I became quieter, not because I wanted to, but because quiet people survive longer. I kept my eyes down in the fields. I answered questions with nods. I worked faster than anyone, twice my age. Pain lived permanently in my shoulders and lower back, but I welcomed it. Pain meant I was still in my body. Inside the trailer, the presence never left. It didn't show itself, it didn't need to. The air was enough heavy, pressurized, like walking underwater. The smell of ozone came and went strongest at night, especially when the candle burned low. Sophia changed, not in ways that were obvious to others. She still laughed, still played, still clung to my leg when strangers came too close. But sometimes I'd catch her staring, not at toys, not at the TV, but at empty space. Her head tilted slightly, listening. Once, while braiding her hair, I asked softly, "What does the thin lady say to you?" Sophia shrugged. "She says I'm safe." My hands trembled. "Does she say anything else?" "She says you're scared," Sophia replied, "and that's okay." I had to sit down. The gifts kept coming, always clean, always deliberate. A rabbit, a crow. Once, something bigger dragged across the dirt, leaving a dark trail I scrubbed away before Sophia woke. I never thanked it. I never refused it either. Refusal felt dangerous. Then came Ismael. He was the new kid in the camp, 6 years old, small for his age. A dry, rattling cough that shook his whole body. His mother, Rosora, was young, too young to already look that tired. She cornered me near the water tanks one evening. "They say you pray," she said quietly. I froze. "Who says that?" She looked away. "Catalina." I felt something tighten around my chest. I started. "My son can't breathe at night," Rosora interrupted, eyes shining. "We can't go to a doctor, I just need something." That night, Catalina came to my trailer. "She listens to you now," she said simply. "Pray with your heart." I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. Instead, I looked at Sophia, asleep beneath the watchful air, and nodded. Rosora came the next night. I set the wooden figure between us, lit the candle, told her to speak. She cried, she begged, she promised everything. The air grew thick, the flame bent sideways. Somewhere behind us, Sophia hummed. Ismael stopped coughing 2 days later. Rosora called it a miracle. I called it a transaction. After that, others came, always quietly, always desperate, and the lady listened. Coyote Bend stopped being just a camp. It became a place people came to whisper hopes into the dark, and I became the bridge. I aged fast after that. Not in years, but in weight. Each prayer sat on me. Each miracle chained me tighter. One night after Sophia fell asleep, I stood at the door and tested the handle. Unlocked. For the first time in months, the air waited. I knew. Leaving was still possible. But Sophia stirred in her sleep, humming that thin, crooked song, and I understood the truth I'd been avoiding. She didn't guard the door anymore. She didn't need to. I was the one holding it closed. I lay beside my daughter and breathed in the smell of her hair, strawberry shampoo, earth, and my child. That was my life. Outside, the fields waited. Inside, the lady watched. And somewhere, another mother was already learning how to beg. I didn't come to the US chasing some fantasy about money or freedom. I came because staying where I was meant ending up broke, sick, or buried, probably all three. Back home, once the factory shut down, everything followed. My dad stopped talking much. Bills stacked up on the kitchen table like bad news we didn't want to read. Every night I'd hear him coughing in the next room, that deep, hollow cough that sounds like something's already rotting inside you. So when a guy I knew from years back sent me a message saying, "If you can make it across, there's work. Roofing, landscaping, whatever you can handle," I didn't hesitate. I told my mother I'd call once I was settled. I told myself I'd come back someday. By the time I reached the border town, I already felt like I'd erased half of who I was. The stash house was a rundown place on the edge of nowhere. Cracked walls, one flickering bulb, smelled like sweat, instant ramen and nerves. 15 of us packed inside, sitting on the floor, leaning against each other like luggage. Nobody talked much. Around midnight, the guide showed up. He wasn't what I expected. No bandana, no dramatic entrance. Just a lean, weathered guy in a faded ball cap and dusty boots. He looked like someone who'd been chewed up by the desert and spit back out more than once. "Name's Ramos," he said. "That's all you need." His English was rough but clear. "You stick with me, you might make it. You don't, you won't. Simple as that." Someone asked how long the walk would be. Ramos didn't answer right away. He just looked at us one by one. "As long as it takes," he said, "and longer than you want." We left just before sunset. At first it wasn't bad. The air was warm but manageable. The sky looked unreal, orange melting into purple, like it didn't belong to this world. For a minute it almost felt peaceful. That feeling didn't last. By the time night fell, my mouth was so dry my tongue stuck to the roof of it. Every step felt heavier than the last. The sand shifted under our feet, stealing energy with every move. I walked behind a kid named Mateo. Couldn't have been more than 17. Skinny, wearing sneakers that were already falling apart. He kept trying to act tough, cracking jokes under his breath. "Man," he whispered once, "people don't talk about how quiet it is." He was right. No wind, no bugs, no distant traffic, just our footsteps and breathing. Ahead of me was a woman named Rosa, mid-40s maybe. She'd been deported twice already. She told me earlier, third time's the charm or the end. Around 2 a.m., someone fell. It was Elena, an older woman who'd barely said a word since we started. She just slowed down, knees buckled, and went face first into the sand. Ramos turned around immediately. "Get up," he said. She tried. Couldn't. "I'm done," she whispered. "I can't feel my legs." One of the men stepped forward. "We can help her." Ramos cut him off fast. "No, you help her. You stay. That's how this works." Elena looked up at us. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. "Go," she said. "Please." Nobody argued. We walked away while she was still alive. That was the moment something inside me broke. I didn't cry, didn't panic. I just felt hollow, like the desert had already taken a piece of me and decided it liked the taste. Day 2 was brutal. The sun came up like it was angry. Heat bounced off the sand, straight into our faces. My shoes filled with burning grit. My shirt stayed soaked, then stiff with dried sweat. Mateo started limping but tried to hide it. "You good?" I asked quietly. "Yeah," he said too fast. "Just a blister." By afternoon, the air went dead. Not still, dead. And that's when we heard it. At first it sounded like wind, but there was no wind. Then voices, low, distant, like a group of people talking somewhere far off. Ramos froze. "What is that?" Rosa asked. He didn't answer right away. We all stood there staring into the open desert. That's when I saw them. A line of figures way off in the distance, moving in single file. Silent, too smooth, too steady. Another group of migrants, I thought at first. But something felt wrong. They weren't kicking up dust. Their pace didn't change. Their heads were down like they were exhausted or ashamed. Mateo raised his hand. "Hey, you guys heading north?" No response. They just kept moving. As they passed closer, my stomach dropped. I couldn't hear their footsteps. No crunch of sand, no breathing, nothing. When the last one passed me, the air around him felt cold. Not night cold. Wrong cold. Ramos whispered, barely moving his lips. "Don't follow them." Mateo frowned. "What if they know where there's water?" Before anyone could stop him, Mateo and two others stepped out of line. Then I heard it. My name. Soft, clear, coming from them. That's when I noticed their feet. They weren't touching the ground. And I ran. I didn't tell anyone I was running until my lungs started burning and someone grabbed my arm. "Hey, slow down!" Ramos hissed. I looked back. The line of figures was gone. No sound, no movement. Just empty desert like it had been minutes ago. Mateo and the other two weren't with us anymore. Rosa spun in a circle, panic flashing across her face. "Where'd they go?" Ramos didn't answer. He just clenched his jaw and motioned us forward. "We keep moving." "But Mateo," I started. "He made a choice," Ramos said flatly. So did they. Nobody argued, nobody cried. We were too tired, too scared. Fear has a way of shutting your mouth when it knows screaming won't help. We walked until sunrise. The light didn't make things better. It just showed us how exposed we were. Endless sand. No landmarks, no shade. Like we were ants crawling across a frying pan. Around mid-morning, Noel stopped. "Look," he said quietly. In the sand beside our trail were footprints. Too big. Way too big. Each one sunk deep into the ground, longer than my forearm, spaced too far apart to belong to anything human. Like something massive had been pacing us all night, just out of sight. Ramos stared at them for a long time. "Don't think about it," he muttered. "Thinking gets people killed." We didn't find Mateo that day, or the next. By the third night we were down to 9. That's when we made camp. Ramos chose a flat stretch of rock instead of sand. "Nothing crawls up through stone," he said, like that was supposed to comfort us. We built a small fire. Everyone sat close, knees pulled to their chests, eyes darting at every shadow. The flames felt like the only real thing left in the world. Rosa broke the silence. "I've crossed before, twice. This never happened." Ramos stared into the fire. "You ever hear about the lost walks?" Noel shook his head. "What's that?" Ramos sighed. "People who die out here don't always stop walking." That's when the whispers started. At first they blended with the crackle of the fire, soft, almost comforting. Then I realized what they were saying. Names. My name. Rosa's. Noel's. Every single one of us. Rosa covered her ears. "Make it stop," she whispered. "Don't answer," Ramos said sharply. "Whatever you do, don't answer." The darkness beyond the firelight started to move. Shadows stretched where nothing stood. Shapes shifted, forming outlines I recognized too well. They were back, this time closer. They circled us slowly, feet hovering inches above the ground, faces hidden beneath hoods and hats. Their bodies looked wrong. Thin in some places, swollen in others. like sand was holding them together instead of bone. One of them stepped forward. I saw his face. No eyes. Just hollow sockets spilling grains of sand that poured endlessly down his cheeks. His mouth opened, and sand spilled from there too, like his body was collapsing from the inside. Rosa screamed. Something yanked her backward. She clawed at the ground, screaming my name, Noel's name, anyone's. Her nails tore, leaving bloody streaks in the sand. And then she was gone. The fire went out. Ramos grabbed me by the shirt. "We move, now." We walked through the night without stopping. Nobody spoke. Nobody looked back. By dawn, we reached the highway. Empty, just asphalt stretching forever in both directions. I laughed once, a short, broken sound. "This is it?" Ramos didn't answer. Then I heard it again. Footsteps. I turned. They were standing at the edge of the desert, all of them. Mateo, Rosa, Elena, dozens more, all watching, waiting. A pickup truck appeared minutes later, a local contact. He didn't ask questions, just told us to get in. As we drove away, Ramos looked at me. "Don't come back," he said, "and don't listen when the desert calls." I live in West Texas now. I work construction. I keep my head down. I don't go outside at night when the wind picks up, because sometimes when sand taps against my window, I hear my name, and I know they're still walking, waiting. I still remember the smell of disinfectant mixed with burnt coffee that morning. It was the kind of smell you only notice when you've been awake for too long, when your feet hurt and your scrubs feel heavier than they should. I had been on shift for nearly 10 hours already, and nothing about that day suggested it would be any different from the hundreds of others I'd worked in that emergency room. I'm an ER nurse. I've been one for 12 years. I've held the hands of people as they died, cleaned blood from the floor at 3 in the morning, and learned how to shut off parts of my heart just to survive the job. You don't last long in emergency medicine if you let every story crawl under your skin. But some stories don't ask permission. They stay with you whether you want them to or not. That morning, the ER was busy but manageable. A construction worker with a crushed finger, a homeless man detoxing and yelling at invisible enemies, a teenage girl crying quietly after a car accident that wasn't her fault, the usual chaos, the kind you learn to move through without thinking too much. I was charting at the nurse's station, remember thinking about lunch, when a woman walked in through the automatic doors. She was holding a newborn. At least that's what I thought at first. She looked to be in her late 30s, maybe early 40s. Brown hair pulled into a messy ponytail, oversized hoodie, jeans that were a little too clean for someone who had just given birth. Her arms were wrapped tight around the baby, almost protectively, but her grip looked stiff, like she was afraid to loosen it even for a second. Something in my chest tightened. I stood up and walked toward her. "How can I help you, ma'am?" I asked, keeping my voice calm, neutral, professional. She looked at me, eyes glassy, unfocused. I just had him, at home. I wasn't supposed to be due yet, it just happened." Her voice trembled, but it felt rehearsed. Like she had said these words already, maybe in the car, maybe in the mirror. "My husband wasn't there," she continued quickly. "I didn't know what to do. I cut the cord myself. I just brought him here. Please, please help him." She was shaking. That part was real. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the baby's blanket. I glanced down at the infant, too still. Newborns move. Even when they sleep, there's something. Tiny jerks, shallow breaths, little sounds. This baby looked wrong. Pale, waxen. His chest didn't rise. My stomach dropped. "Let me take the baby," I said gently, holding out my arms. She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Then she handed him over. The baby was cold. I didn't say that out loud. I didn't say anything. I turned and moved quickly toward the trauma bay, calling for another nurse. Someone took the baby from me and immediately started assessing. I turned back to the woman. "Let's get you on a bed," I said. "We need to check you too. Make sure you're okay. She shook her head fast, too fast. No, I'm fine. I've had kids before. I know my body. Please, just look at him. Just help my baby. That was the first red flag. Women who give birth don't say that. Not like that. Not with that flat certainty. Birth hurts. Birth bleeds. Birth leaves you weak, shaking, barely able to stand. This woman was standing straight, pacing slightly, not leaving the trauma bay doors with her eyes. I still need to examine you, I insisted. Even experienced mothers can have complications. She stepped back. I said no. Her tone hardened. Sharp, defensive. Before I could push further, another nurse pulled me aside. Her face said everything before her mouth did. He's gone, she whispered. He was already gone. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me, dead on arrival. I took a breath, another, then another. You don't fall apart in front of patients. You compartmentalize, you survive. Before I could go back to the woman, chaos erupted behind us. The doors burst open again. EMTs rushed in with a gurney. A young woman lay on it, soaked in blood. Her shirt was cut open, her abdomen wrapped in gauze already turning dark red. Stab wound, one of the paramedics shouted. Heavy blood loss. She was found barely conscious. Everything shifted instantly. Doctors flooded in. Nurses moved like muscle memory. I took charge without thinking, barking orders, applying pressure, checking vitals. The young woman's skin was gray, her lips blue, her eyes fluttered open just once. She took him, she whispered. Then she slipped back into unconsciousness. At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. Hours later, I would. When things finally settled, when the